Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes, to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Hey, we are so excited to be back with you this week. Alex, Leanne, and I are thrilled to bring you Toni Kaufman. Man, am I honored to know this woman. And, Toni, you are an absolute rock star. I mean, the things that you have done are incredible. She's been on the original PowerPoint team. She was security in the White House. Hello?
Oh, no.
Okay, so correct me on that then. I'm going off of somebody named Easy. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I was chosen to be the head of the transition team to bring former President Bush back home, and that's HW, not W. The daddy. And so I got to bring him home to Houston. And then I helped the team set up all the cybersecurity for his new home in Houston, the library at College Station, his office, and then, of course, Kenny Bunkport. And so, and in the process of doing that, I became his personal computer teacher, because he had a brand new laptop, and every time we get together, which was about 15 minutes every other day, he'd say, "Okay, Toni, what's that button for?" And then we would go into
that's incredible.
So I had a lot of fun. It was very humbling. It's so funny, as you're going through that, you don't see how really important that is.
Yeah.
And when you see it in retrospect, it's like, oh my goodness, that was really a treat. And I got to stand by myself under an overpass and watch the train go by that had the glass carriage that had his casket in it. And I did say my goodbyes on video to my friends on Facebook, and just explain that sometimes things are so much bigger than just you and me.
Yes.
And that's how I feel about the entire episode with working with the president. So, but I wasn't at White House. I was in Houston.
Okay. So I love the clarification, because it sounds like some of what I have learned about you being a rock star has just some little tweaks that need to be made. And I'd love for you to share, in addition, about being a producer on the major events. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Latin Grammys, American Idol, The Voice, like you've produced some major events and worked with some incredible celebrities, producers, directors.
I've had the honor and the privilege to cast. Now, I didn't do The Voice, but I did American Idol, Family Feud, America's Top Model. And I actually worked on all three of those shows in the Spanish versions. So American Idol was Objetivo Fama. America's Top Model was Belleza Latina. And then Family Feud was Que Dice La Gente, which is what people say, right?
Yeah.
And so we just changed names a couple of times to 100 Mexicanos Dijeron, 100 Mexicans said.
Yes.
And so it's kind of a couple of iterations. I had the pleasure of working with and being a producer and casting director for Fremantle Media and Fremantle Media Latin America. So that's the name. That was my client, right?
Yes.
And we didn't pick the shows. They picked them for us, and they said, okay, you got to go do that. And had a blast doing it. Absolutely had a blast. And for Family Feud, I had the fun of finding families from Texas to California And we
Wow.
would actually make them play against each other, and we were kind of ahead of our time because I actually had live webcams, and we had one webcam going to the casting director, my counterpart in Mexico City, and then the other major casting director was the one in Miami, who
Wow.
when families won, we would fly them over there and film them, and so there was three of us working, but two were on camera, and this is way before Zoom, so.
Yes, wow. I mean, that's incredible. Just your knowledge and the way you applied it. And I've seen you in action because you produced this major event that I was at in LA recording on behalf of Alex. Alex is a new mom. She's got a 3-year-old and a brand new baby. And so it was a real privilege and honor to see you at work, see your grace under pressure, see you be able to handle things in such a powerful and beautiful way. And you left everybody feeling like a rock star. I mean,
They
it,
were. And I just finished seeing a little bit of your time on stage, Carol. So there's great things coming, guys. There's some great things coming.
oh, that's awesome. I love that. And I want something I want to share with you about my partner, Alex Leanne. She and you share that in common. She's got grace under pressure. And
Oh,
I thought
thanks,
we could
Carol.
really dive into leadership today because she is got her master's degree in tech and is a university professor and does leadership trainings. And so I love that in common about both of you. Alex, Leanne, is there anything you'd love to ask Toni?
Well, I think it just goes back to what you said about Toni. Like, yeah, the grace under pressure and how even with the pressure, everyone felt that connection from you, right? And when we talk about leadership and really talk about our way of being and how we show up as these powerful leaders and
Yeah.
kind of define being these bold leaders as being outrageous, loving, and daring. Like, how do you do it, Toni? I guess I'm just really curious of like, how do you set yourself up for success before going into something like a big event that Carol was well, both you and Carol were at, and how do you maintain that grace while still, of course, moving the needle forward, moving things forward, while everybody still feels that love and connection from you, and not that kind of chaos and ego and
even though the back of my head's going,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Alex. Here's my answer. I've done a lot of casting, and here in Texas, which means that we're doing casting and movie stuff. You're starving to death because there's not that many projects.
Yeah.
And when there are, it's like a feeding frenzy, right?
Yeah.
But I was known as the nice casting director because I just can't see tearing people down, making them feel horrible, and casting is just such it can be a pretty nasty process. There's no political correctness to us whatsoever. So let's say, for example, that Carol is the director of a new movie, and you've gotten all the stuff down because casting is like the last thing, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you're bringing in a movie star who's a name attached to the project, then casting is just one of the many tasks you have to do, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is in my mind is that everybody has something to offer, and everybody gets, especially if it's an open casting call, everybody gets a shot. Mm-hmm. And if Carol is our director, and let's say that you and I are producers on the event, on the film or the TV show or the competition, whatever it is, then we've already had a conversation with Carol. And Carol, my usual question to directors, especially student directors that I work with a lot from UT and U of H, University of Texas and University of Houston, is so if you had all the money in the world and you had a choice of any A-lister that you want, who would be the girl in this picture? Mm. And if they tell me it's Jennifer Aniston, I know I'm not looking for a brunette. Yeah. You see? Right. And if they say Angelina Jolie, I know I'm not looking for a platinum blonde. Yeah. So that you demand, that look. You want that look. And we don't advertise it, especially not on an open call, because that would be horrible. but I already know that I'm of what I'm looking for. So as people come in, I need them to understand, and most casting directors don't do this. I need the people who come in with hope in their heart to understand two things. If they're super, super duper nervous, I say, let me ask you something. And they'll say, yes. And I'll say, did you have this part when you walked in?
Mm.
And they say, no. Then I say, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
So
Ah,
let's give it a chance. Let's give it a try, right? And
Yeah.
I'll
yeah.
work with
Yeah.
them because it might help them in the future. Even if they're not the right person or the right look that I'm looking
Mhm.
for, I'm not going to tear them down and say, go away, you're no good, which I've seen other casting directors do. And I will never do that,
Mm.
especially not to children.
Yeah.
No way am I going to send a child out. And at one time, my daughter wanted to get into modeling and acting. And my response was, I just kind of sank. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My heart just kind of sank because I knew she couldn't handle rejection.
Mm.
And 98% of every audition you go to is not going to be yours. You will be
Yeah.
rejected. But
Mm.
it might have nothing to do with your talent. It has to do with just what the director's looking for.
What
That's
they're
it.
looking for.
Yeah.
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 And is there a crossover in that? Thank you so much for that. Is there crossover in that with speaking? Because Alex and I are both public speakers, and
Mhm.
you happen to own a speakers bureau. I know one of the beautiful and wonderful things you do, which we'll point to, is you help people to become their own event planner, if you will, their own manager.
Yeah.
But, what's the process look like on that side of things?
So I looked at it when I was creating the Standout Star Speakers Bureau, and I looked at it as an agent with an agent mentality. And because everywhere I go, people who know that I've done casting, that I've been an agent, that I've, that talent, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I started doing a lot of research when I went before I opened Standout Stars, and I found out that there's a lot of speakers bureaus. I mean, just do a quick Google and you'll see,
Yeah.
1.7 million of them. But in less than a second, right? They'll all pop up. But what I did notice was that the average on the low end, the average speaker bureau, in order for you to be qualified to be listed with them, you had to prove that you were making $5,000 a month for at least 3 months before you
Mm.
got approved.
Okay.
And then I took that with my knowledge of the speaking industry and I said, okay, there's three types of speakers. Number one is, and it's funny, I'm sticking up my hand and the reactions button's going on, but I keep my hands together. But there's three kinds of speakers, and one of them is the baby speaker. I call them the baby speakers. They're the emerging speakers, right? They're just getting there. They're getting their signature talk together. They're getting their mindset together. They're understanding that they want to be out there, but they're not sure what they're going to talk about yet. So those are
Mhm.
the emerging babies. And then you've got the experienced speakers, those who have
Yeah.
already invested in themselves. They've already had maybe a course or a
Yeah.
program that they've been on. They've already done the homework. They've already created a product, a program, or a service
Yeah.
that they can sell, that they can talk about that they're going to sell. And those are the
Yeah.
experienced speakers. And then they've got probably, what's the rule that 10,000 hours makes you an expert? That's
Stuff
about
like
right.
that, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So my emerging babies need a lot of practice. So they need a lot of stages and they need a lot of places to go and to
Yeah.
be able to perform. And I don't care if it's, what do you call it, the Toastmasters or
Yes.
or the Chamber of Commerce, wherever you can go deliver a pitch or a talk. It could be a career day at a high school.
Yeah.
Just practice, practice, practice. Get out there, get out. The more you get out there, the better you become.
Yeah.
So those are emerging. Then it goes to experience, but the line between experience and expert is a mile long. Okay, there's a
Mhm.
big difference. And the biggest difference is that expert speakers are a draw.
Mm.
So you get paid the big bucks, the Colin Powells, the President
Yeah.
Bushes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, I know that by working with the president, that every time he had his minimum rate was $330,000 to
Yeah.
speak at an event, right?
Yeah.
So, very common for most ex-presidents.
Yeah.
And that was in the 80s. So maybe it's gone up since then, right?
Yeah.
So, Yeah, Alex was just born, but but but,
Maybe.
but maybe not. I don't think so. I've got kids older than you, Alex. So I guess that's what I'm saying is there's a big line between the emerging, the expert, the experienced, and the expert.
That makes a lot
And
of
by the
sense.
time you get to be an expert, it's because I mean I have a good friend of mine who sells. You know, I've seen him sell $500,000 in 30 minutes on a talk at an
Yeah.
event. And those are the folks that they'll let you come in without paying a fee, and you split your profits. So they love you to come
Mm,
in, because if you're going to sell $500,000, they just made $250,000 for just having you on stage for 30 minutes.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
so that's the difference. And so to get from one to the other, it does require a lot of work and a lot of homework and a lot of self-development and a lot
Yeah.
of mindset and all of the things that we cover and that you cover too, Carol, in all of your deliveries.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting because I want to give a shout out to somebody that has worked with you and who I adore and who Alex and I have featured here on the podcast, and that's Marla Press. So,
Oh my
um,
gosh. Yeah, she's one
yeah,
of my graduate babies.
yeah, yeah. And,
I'm so glad
I
you had her. Yeah.
was drawn to her immediately just in the way she presented things and her dynamism and, just the way she teaches you to use particular items to draw the audience in,
Yeah.
to engage them. I loved our episode. So, listener, friend, definitely go back and catch her episode and just know that she's worked with Toni. So,
Oh
um,
yeah, she was one of my first next level graduates, and I'm very proud of her. She was so much fun to work with because she's a hoot. I
yeah.
mean, because every time we have an event, we do if we I do get speaker ready and get stage ready, and then the last one's get business ready. So 3 events a year, but
Mm,
this year we're going to do get speaker ready twice because there seems to be a lot of uh, people who are interested in it.
mhm.
Um, and so Marla, she kind of her enthusiasm were there, her personality comes out, but she was still working. I believe she was in the dentist office, and now she's become she's come of age. She's done her own thing. She's left
Yeah.
her job, and now she's speaking full time. And I'm really proud of her. So yeah, and she still makes me smile every time I see her. And you're going to meet a couple more. You're going to meet Patty Stulin, the Dan Capellan, Brenda Susi, my little Sharpa, Sherpa. Yeah, she's in Canada, and she was the most amazing. And I could talk for hours about these folks, but they really are amazing, and they're up and coming, and they're my first class of graduates, and I'm real proud of them.
Graduates. That's so
Yeah.
So,
cool. And go ahead, Alex. Alex Leanna's in Canada, so
Oh, Brenda is too. Yeah, yeah.
so Toni, when you're what's coming to mind right now as you're speaking is like a lot of our audience, they're leaders, right? And so leaders, whether or not you're speaking on stages, you could be speaking on a workshop, you're speaking in a boardroom, a lot of leaders tend to speak in some form of capacity, right?
yeah.
Right.
And I'd love to know from your perspective and just having worked with so many different speakers at different levels, like how do you own the space so that no matter what stage you're
Mm,
speaking on, whether it's a virtual space, it's in person, it's in, a small space, a big space, how do you really command the space? Because I know that, and this is something like in my personal experience, I know Carol and I've had talked about this a little bit on our podcast before, is like really having the confidence of like taking the space, owning the space, standing in your power, because sometimes it can be intimidating, right? If you're speaking to
Sure.
right either big audiences or even really intimate audiences. So I would love to know, like, do you have any sort of like in your pocket? Like it goes back to just you, even the grace piece at the beginning, right? Like
yeah.
it's on our beingness of like how we show up. And so I have a feeling that probably some of the things that you might do or what you coach on probably is how you show up with that grace under
Oh, very
pressure, no matter where you are. So yeah,
yeah.
I guess I'm really curious to know like what goes on in the brain of Toni Kaufman, right? To show up with this presence and the power that you bring, holding people's vision high, which is what I kind of heard you say earlier, like when you're
Mhm.
doing the casting, like I can see, Toni, you're a powerful leader. And so just for the listener and I'm sure for Carol and I, just to uncover
Yeah.
like what goes on in your experience that you want to share with the audience so that, yeah, we can stand strong just like you in
You know,
whatever space that we show up in.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start off with two things. Number one is what makes you walk on the stage and be accepted and be graceful and all that is knowing that you're there to serve. It's not about you.
Mm.
The first
Yeah.
thing I find out, for example, if you guys are going to book me for, let's say we're going on a cruise and you're going to give speaking positions to folks.
Yeah.
I want to know who's on the cruise. I want to know who the audience is because I want to know what they want to hear. It's not what I've got to offer. It's what they want to hear that we can bring to the table. And that's what makes
Yeah.
a good speaker. Maya
Mhm.
Angelou said it the best. It's not what you say. It's not what you do. It's how you make them feel.
That's
And
right.
that's the most important. I spoke to a couple of hundred young women who were graduating at the University of Texas A&M University here in College Station. And man, if you ever want to see someone with imposter syndrome, I was lit. I mean, they called me, I got the gig, and I'm like, do they even know I don't have a degree in anything? Do they know that I didn't get to finish college because I had kids? I got married,
Yeah.
had kids instead. Do they,
Yeah.
and so that kind of runs into your mind.
Mhm.
And I used to, when I had I had a $3 million corporation and ran about 60 employees and 17 contractors, and we were all IT experts. And that's when I was Microsoft technical evangelist. And so I used to teach people how to use their computer and how to use Word and Excel and PowerPoint. And I used to say, I love PhDs. I've got two of them working for me. but but it was kind of a Rodney Dangerfield kind of a joke. But
Yeah.
the reality is, when I actually got asked to go there, Carol, I can't even tell you how many times I looked in the mirror and said, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
so scared and I was so nervous because these are brilliant, brilliant, sorority, they're all now called fraternities, by the way. And so all these wonderful young women graduating from one of the best schools in the nation, and they
Wow.
wanted to know how to handle influencers and what's the reality of the influencers in their lives.
Wow.
And they're my grandkids' age,
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
so I was really nervous. I have to tell you, I was really nervous. But then I came up and I just started. I met with them the night before, and I asked them, "Who is your favorite influencers?" And some said
Mhm.
the Kardashians, and some said this, and some said that. What I did is I flipped it that morning, the conversation, to go from being an influencer and the power of to understanding and defining yourself as an
Mhm.
Mm.
and what I did is I picked up
Wow.
on the internet about 17 pictures of the most powerful women influencers and what they really look like from
Mm.
Getty Images. So
Wow.
here's this chick who's got a 15-inch waist and a 40-inch butt, and and
Yeah.
guess what, guys? This is what she really looks like. This is
Wow.
fake. And so I
Yeah.
did that, and we had them laughing. I mean, they were just laughing at the reality versus, what their filters are putting
Yes.
out there, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we turned it into kind of a comedic thing versus a judgmental thing, and I think that helped a
Mhm.
lot because they are young and they don't need to be that serious.
Yeah.
That was step one. Step two is in 2015, Miss Workaholic over here, who never had time to do anything and worked all the time and at the expense of kids and eating and husband and everybody else. I got a nice little gift from God called God's 2x4, and Carol knows what
Mm.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
sometimes,
Burnout.
I
sometimes,
was gonna say, I have a feeling it's burnout. I speak a lot about
oh,
burnout with women leaders, and
Yeah.
oh,
yeah, so I had a feeling yeah, I can
well,
see, yeah.
so I was working so hard and so much that I was costing my body's immune system to fail.
Yeah.
So I went and we decided to take the kids to Japan. All right. And so I spent 7 days at Tokyo Disney because I had Disney points, so I could stay there for free. So my oldest Andy, my daughter, she says, "Mom, you're the only person who goes to Japan and sends back pictures of Mickey Mouse." I mean, come on.
It's funny, yeah.
I ended up, it's true. I ended up being kind of the poster child for H1N1. I caught it and brought it back to Houston. And 3 months later, I was dying.
Wow.
H1N1 is COVID's mommy.
Yeah, that's right.
I was very fortunate that I didn't get H5N1 because there were 0 survivors for H5.
Wow.
But and I was one of 7. I was the only one that survived out of 7 that I knew in the group. My doctor. 37 days in ICU on intravenous steroids. I lost I was going blind because steroids do that to you.
Wow.
And I was at 217 pounds of just steroid induced inflammation.
Yeah.
And I was diabetic because steroid induced diabetes.
Yeah.
And so after 37 days in the ICU, they transferred me to a hospice. And 2 weeks later, I finally got home in a wheelchair, and my entire life changed. I lost my right lung. I lost my trachea. It collapsed. And so I didn't know how to speak, talk, walk, or breathe anymore.
Wow.
And I started from scratch. And that's why I call it God's 2x4, because it's really hard. It's really hard to be proud and arrogant when you've got a nurse wiping your butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of that goes out the window.
Yeah.
You get that 2x4 where God says, "Shut up, sit down and listen." Yeah. And I did. And boy, was that a humbling experience. So from a multi-million-dollar CEO of this major corporation to that was pretty life-changing. And so when you walk into any place that you've been asked to speak at, you've just got to lay it down, because there's a lot of people out there that are just like we are. That are workaholics, that are working to death, that don't have their life in order. That the whole idea of work-life balance was a joke.
Yeah,
there wasn't. Right? It was a good sounding thing that you can make speeches about, but nobody really practiced it. And when you work for a big corporation, at that point, I was the chief of staff of global IT for Hewlett Packard, and that was at AP division. So there was 330 people under me that we had to communicate with all the time, and so it just everything came to a grinding halt. And that was pretty humbling.
That's a huge lesson, right?
Yeah.
Huge lesson.
Yeah.
And tell us about the recovery of that. I think that's super important, because one of the things that things that Alex and I talk about are the leadership, the neuroscience, wealth, and Alex Leanne had a huge burnout story. I had a burnout story. Yeah. And, we know people right now who are caught in the hustle culture and caught in the drive and neglecting the self-care, neglecting, being able to actually understand the principle of doing less creates more, because it provides that space for creativity and for solutions and, real productivity versus the busyness.
And the other thing too with burnout is that it becomes the pattern. It becomes the pattern of that's actually what's safe and familiar to the brain when we look at the neuroscience of it. And so it sounds like, like you said, God hit you over the head with that 2x4 it's a way of interrupting the pattern.
Yeah.
Right. Like when you're,
that was the only way he was going to get me off that treadmill. Yeah. That was, and it makes so much sense now, but man, you just have to give it up and just listen to your body and just start all over again. So what my choice was, Carol, it's so funny because my sister had already passed away at that time from cancer. She was my big sister.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And my sister was a rough, tough. I was the girly girl in the family, and she was the tomboy, right? and she was just so strong. And I tell you what, she was the most the best comedian I ever saw in my life. I would
Wow.
walk into a room and everybody would be rolling on the floor within like 10
Wow.
minutes. And she was just hard hitting, and she lived for a cause, and she was just really important. Her name was Celia. And
Oh, wow. A
and so
beautiful name.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
my mom's name too. My mom wasn't real creative. We had 2 Celias and 3 Tonys. So my dad
Awesome.
was Antonio, I was Antoniette, and my little brother was Anthony, and then there were 2 Celias. I'm like, Mom, really? There's like
Oh, when you have
Kathy or a
beautiful names like
Sue
that, you want to
or a
keep them in the
Willie
family,
or
right?
Right, exactly.
oh, but it's so funny because every time I would sit in bed, because I couldn't even walk, I couldn't take 30 steps to the bathroom. It was
Yeah.
so ridiculous that you come from, 50-mile
Yeah.
swimmer, super athlete, super horsewoman, super, entrepreneur to that.
Hmm.
And I had 2 choices, right? Just like everybody else
Hmm.
does.
Yeah.
You have 2 choices. You either give in or you do something about it.
Yeah.
And every time I sat in my bed, crying to myself and watching TV, I could hear my sister's voice in my ear. Every time I was feeling sorry for myself, I would hear her go, "Yeah, get over it." We're Hispanic. She said, "Yeah." And I could hear her physically saying, "Get over it. I mean, you're still alive. There's people much
Yeah.
worse off than you," which
Yeah.
was true, right? And then it made
Yeah.
sense to me. So people that had HIV, people that had, stage 4 cancer,
Yeah.
I had been given a break. I was
Yeah.
still alive and I could
Wow.
recover. Right. That was a different situation. So that's what I started doing is I got on the internet and started reading papers about the immune system and how to build it back up
Wow.
from all John Hopkins and MD Anderson and so many other places and so many doctors that had done that. And then there was in YouTube, and by the way, all this happened in YouTube and Google, right?
You're right.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I'm on my laptop all the time, laying in bed, and there was a doctor named Buteyko, Buteyko, and he was a Russian doctor who was alive many, many years ago, but he designed a methodology to help people learn how to breathe. And
Wow.
so I started. I was paid $100 an hour, did 11 hours worth of training with coaches from
Wow.
all over the world on Zoom, on kind of Zoom, but they would coach me on how to do breathing and how to regain
Wow.
it and how to and so I mean I started losing weight. I started eating right. I had my kids wheel me over to Target when I was ready to go back, and I remember seeing this really cute little ice cream bowls. They're just really cute little. And so I said, get me 12 of those. And they're like, okay, you're going to eat 12 bowls of ice cream if I can. Anyway, and remember, I was like 200 some odd pounds, right? So
Yeah. From the
every day,
steroids. Yeah.
yeah, every day I filled up those little cups, those little bowls with raw food, fruit, veggies,
Awesome.
some ice cream, it's something to spoil
Yeah.
yourself with, but it was fruits and veggies, stuff and good stuff,
Yeah.
salads and things. And I ate them all, like every hour I was eating something.
Mhm.
And the pounds started dropping off, and I
Wow.
started becoming more human. After
Yeah.
I felt like Jabba the Hutt for a minute there, but
Yeah. Yeah. That would be very humbling also,
yeah,
the whole part of the journey of like your whole form and visage changed and
yeah,
not
yeah,
being able to
so
breathe and
yeah.
here you're a dynamic leader and not being able to speak. I mean, I can imagine, how there must have been those moments when you sat in bed and cried, right?
Oh gosh, very often,
Yeah,
very often,
because that's real, we're human and that
but
is a
but I gotta
big
tell you guys,
lesson.
whenever you feel sorry for yourself, you listen to "Yeah, get over it," because there's so many people that are in worse shape and they need
Yeah.
Mhm.
kind of guidance and help and love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how
that
does that, I was just gonna say, so like with your humbling experience, like I'm just curious if there's anything else that you sort of say, like your self-talk, your positive
Yeah.
self-talk, really,
Yeah.
to show up. I mean, we're across the screen from each other, and you do just have that, you're dynamite, right? That's what the word that's coming to me right is dynamite.
Yeah.
And so for those that are listening, it is so easy, as we even know with the neuroscience, right? Like when 90% of what we hear goes to the negative,
Right.
like to be able to step up and I guess it's own your own dynamite. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you do, because
like just,
people, and this was part of that humbling experience from Texas A&M is everybody, you know what we say all the time, Carol, everybody has a story, but how well you tell it and how much you learn from it and what you want to share to others, that you don't share your successes. I mean, I can sit here and talk to you all day long about some wonderful award that I got somewhere. But if you share your pain, you get 100% more accessible, and you get 100% more focus from people who are going through that right now. You know, if you share your pain, and then more important than that, you share your solution, the resilience factor. I just gave you a story where I gave you the pain, I gave you the purpose, and then what I did, the solution from that pain, and now we have something more to offer. Is we offer resilience, and we offer purpose, and we offer grace, and we offer strength, and we offer understanding, because people judge you on not what you've accomplished, but what you've been through. Because that makes you 100% more accessible than somebody who's sitting there bragging on stage.
It's engaging.
Very much so, because you're more human.
Right.
I'll tell you what, one of my favorite speakers of all time was a young woman. God bless. I just because I'm saying that, I'm trying to remember her name. And
I know how that is.
Yeah, I went to an event. Back in the mid '80s. Bonnie St. John Dean. And she was an Olympian, and she had her little blue USA Olympics jacket, and she was on the stage, and she walked back and forth, and she got up to the lectern, and she kind of leaned on it, and she made a quote, and then she just kind of stared at you, and then her hand moved up to her hip, and she went click, click, and her leg fell off.
Oh, wow.
Right. She was a slalom champion. And she had done that even though she had lost her leg when she was a child.
Wow.
And she was an Olympian. Imagine that. And I've never forgot it. It's been, 40 years since I've seen that? I've never forgot it. And from that moment on, man, I was like glued to the stage. She could just do no wrong.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's incredible. And those stories of triumph, I mean, that's what really inspires us as we move through life, is to know that anything is possible. And of course, Alex, Leanne, and I talk about manifesting your reality all the time through the neuroplasticity that we have. And, you're an example of that. You're living that out in your life. I mean, you just casually dropped a while ago. And I heard, what a major athlete you were before you went into this 2x4 experience.
Yeah.
And, those things are relatable too, because then we're really, it hones us to pay attention. It hones us to, take a step back, take a breath, and work-life balance is totally false. It's really about harmony, right? It's about harmony. Yeah. I mean, even that, it's so counterintuitive, right, to what we've been surrounded by. And then we go through these lessons and we go, oh, it was really that way.
Things aren't always what they seem. And I've talked to so many people who are famous and infamous at the same time, or as the three amigos say, they're infamous. That's more than famous.
I love it. I love it.
But they all have stories, and that's the answer to your question, Alex, Leanne. If you have a story that others can associate with, not because of your brilliance and your reward, but because of the pain you went through to get there, that helps people relate to you, that helps people connect with you, and it makes them listen. And so, what I use it as a joke, Carol, but you brought it up earlier. This is the reason that I created the Get Speaker Ready event. I paid $15,000 from a very good place where that when I first got it back into the speaker business, because I wanted to make sure that I understood what this whole modality was and all of the methodologies that are out there, and then how they make it as a business, and how do you go from being a mentor to being a mentor that makes money to being a speaker that makes money. So the steps that I had to kind of do, because I do think in bullet points, and I'm like, ever since I started working with PowerPoint, it's like, okay, 7 words and 3 bullet points, no more than 5 words each, blah blah blah. I really do believe in what they call the haiku method of PowerPoint. It's not death by PowerPoint, but rather emotion through PowerPoint. And so, so the $15,000 course that I learned, that I paid for, reminds me of back in the 70s. God, I'm going to really age here. I'm a graduate of the John Robert Powers School of Modeling. Wow. And I was born and raised in Mission, Texas, which is a tiny place down by Brownsville, at the very, very tip of Texas, at the very bottom. And there wasn't any modeling schools, and there wasn't any of that available. And in the 60s and 70s, I mean, not only was there a lot of music, but there was great fashion out there. And I really wanted to be a model. And so I signed up for John Robert Powers in Dallas, which meant that I had to either travel 12 hours by car. Wow. Or plane, and every other Saturday, and be there for classes. And it's so funny. On the way back home after my last class, after the graduation, I thought, I just paid $700 to learn how to walk, talk, and breathe. I already knew how to do that. And I'm like, gee, what's wrong with this picture, right?
Exactly. Although I do think there's a definite skill to it. One of my daughters has actually walked in Paris Fashion Week, and, you put her in front of a camera and me in front of a camera. In fact, at the event we were at, when they were taking the pictures, he kept saying, "Can you loosen up? Can you pose a little?" And I was like, "I am."
You're like the lady with the Botox that goes, "Am I smiling? Am I smiling?"
That's right. I was like, how do you get unstiff, right? Versus the ones who can, they can lean back and do all these things. Like, I just admire the skill
let me tell you what a friend of mine did. This friend of mine ended up being the director for what's the movie about the sparkly vampires?
Oh,
that had glitter all over their body.
Yeah, I can't remember that right now.
You remember that series? Anyway, she was a director from it. She was from McAllen, Texas. Her name was Catherine Hardwick, or is Catherine Hardwick, and she used to wear a little bird in her hair. And her theory, I was like, Catherine, her theory was you walk into a bar, and like the first thing she would do is like stumble and fall. And I'd be like freaking out at my table. And I'm like, "Why did you do that?" She says, "Because from then on, everything's cool." You can have a blast. Everything is gone, right? Anything that could have happened has happened. Now you can go have a good time with me. And made so much sense to me. And she was, and then she ended up being the director of God, I can't remember the movie. You guys know what the movie is, the vampire with the
I'll have to think of it. Yeah. It's not coming to me, but that I love that she wore a bird in her hair. That's super cool.
So the $15,000 course, and the reason that I brought it up is what we teach. And this is what I firmly believe. There's 5 steps to any talk, whether you're talking for 5 minutes or 5 days. It's the same foundation, same process. You have an intro, which means you tell them what you're going to tell them, right?
Yeah.
You have a story, which is where you relate to them. You have the pain, which shows them what you've been through so that they can relate to you more, and that you look less proud and more modest. So they have a relationship building. But then you tell them their solution, which we just did, and then you give them your offer. So that's how I teach Speak to Sell. because it should come very natural. And
Yeah.
by the time that you're there at the last part of the show, so to speak, you ask for their permission, or you can tell them way at the beginning. At the end of this hour, I'm going to offer you something where you can work with me, or a program that you can buy, or a book that you can look at. Would that be okay with you if I do that? And most people say yes at the beginning because they want to hear the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we teach for those 3 days, Carol.
And one of the things I love about it, Toni, is that, being privileged to work with you right now and come to this next retreat is that you pair it in a way that you're working, but you're getting this VIP experience. You also combine it with podcasting, you combine it with spa treatments. And so it sounds really rough, really rough. Yeah.
And like my experience with Toni is she creates
do it.
You create the VIP experience for whoever you work with, Toni. I can tell that with you, right?
Yeah.
We did it in Austin last year, and we had the best time because I really take into consideration where we are. For example, in Austin, we did three night. Every night I teach. First of all, once you arrive, we pick you up at the airport. We bring you to the place. You're catered to. We have so much stuff to do, but there's a lot of work involved. It's not always that easy. There's a questionnaire that I send them that you fill out. Then we take that questionnaire. I take it to my team, and they create the PowerPoint for you. Day one, so you can imagine every slide has looks like Wikipedia, right? It's got like 100 words. So the job from day one to day two is to turn each slide into 7 words, which is really hard for most people because they're like, if I don't have notes, I'm not going to be able to give my presentation. I have to read from the screen. And I'm like, nope. So day two, we take those 7 words and turn them into pictures. And you put everything you want on your speaker notes, but I want people to feel what you're trying to tell them. I don't want them to read a screen. And then day 3, they deliver the presentation, then we film them. We also do headshots. We also have a makeup artist. We also do some events. But for example, one of the fun things about Austin, Texas, what we did last year, is that they're known for bats, murals, and music.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah. And music capital of the world, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Did not know that.
So I took them to an authentic, I call it my favorite little dive. There's this little tiny place, and like 60 people, and it's full, right? With a tiny little red curtain stage. But when you walk into the Victory Grill in Austin, if you're ever in Austin, you've got to visit it. There are murals and album covers that line the entire entrance, and every one of them is signed. Ike and Tina Turner, Smokey Robinson, Tupac, Snoop Dogg. I mean, every major Black actor, writer, singer, dancer that had an album, they were there. They were all there. And there's murals, like I said, there's signatures, and there's one album after the other. I've got that one, and I've got that one. And I love that song. And you just walk down memory lane for Motown. And it's amazing. In Austin, Texas, I make them talk on that. They deliver a presentation on that stage.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So we had fun. So we did that. We did wine tasting too, and we're going to do that back at the Palm Springs as well, because there's so many. I didn't even know there was 27 vineyards around Austin right now, because all the Californians have moved to Austin. So really cool places around there. So I'm really looking forward to Palm Springs and what we're going to do there. And this is happening the weekend after Valentine's. So if you want a cool place to spend a birthday, or which is Carol's birthday,
that's right,
or go with the person you love and spend a great 3 days learning, having a good time, and just becoming the speaker that you're meant to be. This is the VIP treatment for you.
And I think this is amazing. It's just also, that you're not just getting pampered and spoiled, which I'm all about, but that you're also walking away with concrete results that you can take with you that will not only play into your speaking career, but also into anything that you're doing in terms of being
Yeah.
online, being out there, being influential. And so,
Well, I mean, it's funny even talking, you're saying, Toni, about the PowerPoints, right? Like, so one of the modules of one of the courses I teach, there's the PowerPoint, right? And I'm always giving the feedback of like, okay, PowerPoint is not supposed to have like everything, like all, and so I loved how you lean into just even the images of capturing and creating the way that they feel. So what I love is that it really is whatever you're sharing here today, it can be in any place where you are presenting something, right? And just leaning into that feeling piece and minimizing what you've got on your PowerPoint.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Tools, right?
I mean,
PowerPoint's a tool, but it's a tool. That's a tool that can kill the presentation, or it can be. Now, the one thing, and I wish you guys had been there. Well, I just got off the marketers cruise, and so this is the first time in the
I have a friend that was there.
Years, so I'm going to invite both of you to attend the marketers cruise next year, and the podcasters cruise coming up as well.
Yeah,
that Carol needs to be at.
Yeah,
but one of the fun things that we noticed was that there was, for the first time in 17 years, there was 6 women leaders who each brought in more than 10 cabins. First time ever there had been more than one woman on the stage.
Wow.
And so we're coming of age. And most of them. Kimberly was there. I mean, Virginia, Danella. I mean, there was just some great women there that we were rah-rahing for. Yeah. But the number one thing that I saw from all the 10 speakers, not just the women, there was, out of all of them, there was only one woman who did not depend on PowerPoint to deliver her talk. Wow. And I'm saying this because for some reason, the technology gods were not letting it happen, pure and the way it should have been. So everybody was like, oh, there's no slide. What do I say now? And I'm like, you guys, you're the leaders. For God's sake, you don't need PowerPoint. If you need PowerPoint as a crutch, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong, because you ought to be able to just go through intro, story, pain, solution, offer. And you know what else I teach? And I'm going to give it to you free, Carol. You ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
If you're on the stage, how do you remember what part of the story you're in? Intro, story, pain, solution, offer.
The body.
You got 4 limbs in the head. 1, 2, 3, awesome. 4, 5. That's how you remember which part of the story you're at, which part of the talk you're at. So you could always position yourself and ground yourself on which part of the body is talking right now.
That's amazing. I mean, that's incredible.
I love doing that. That's the way it works.
Yeah. I can't wait to get that down. And
well, you can take it anywhere, right? Like you go live, my brain is like, oh my goodness, all of these different places where you can use that. So thank you, Toni, so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom and your heart and just your passion, your story. And we're just so honored. And I know our audience is going to love hearing from you. And that the little, save the magic for the end, right? Where it's like that, I just love it, and
the cherry on top.
I mean, I'm kind of making a dance with it as I'm going.
That's right.
We got to do that. We'll create a dance at the event, Carol. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think that's fun, and we got to keep talking it up because Alex gets to be present. We've talked about the podcasters cruise already, so. That would be
cool. You're going to love that. Yeah. And tomorrow's the meeting, actually. I'll send you an invite. So I think it's every other Thursday we have the talk about the podcasters cruise. Okay. And we also talk about the infinite list too, which is a lot of fun as well. Okay. And every other Thursday, you know what time that is. It's the what they call the mega pitch party. So we want to help you succeed. So come join us at a pitch party where you get to pitch your stuff.
She's an Easy Way member. So the only thing that's been interfering has been the timing of the babies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
needs
Uh-huh.
and the baby and the toddler. Yeah. She's got a
Okay.
dynamic little toddler, Abby. She's brilliant and she's already got that independent streak. And I remember when you had brought the baby home, um, if you don't mind me sharing this story, she couldn't find you because you weren't in your usual space. And she managed to get out the front door and was headed down the street, and a bus driver found her.
Oh, my husband. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
like my
your
husband.
husband found
My
her.
husband.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
my
Yeah.
son did that at 18 months, and the firemen picked him up. And I was called at work. My daughter was babysitting, and the police had my kid. And oh my
You're
God,
like, yeah, it's
oh,
pretty,
yeah.
you kind of freak out in that
Oh
when you're like,
yeah. How
how
could
did
you
this
not?
happen? Right.
At least they're safe. But yeah, that was like one of the super embarrassing times of my life. And I'm like, what happened? And that's when I realized that working an hour away from your home was really difficult on trying to
Mm,
raise children.
yeah.
And now I can't tell you how old my eldest is, but this is the last year of my 60s. So we're going to enjoy this year, and then we're going to have
Yeah.
fun with the 70s.
Yes, yes. And I mean, you would never ever know that. That's
Oh,
incredible.
no, you.
That's that that sense in you of leadership. That's the point I was bringing up about little Abby. Like she was looking at a snow mountain. Alex sent me a picture of, and she's like, I'm at the top of that. What'd she say? I'm at the top of that mountain. Like she already knew, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
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 Oh my God.
Like
See,
she declared that she got to the top of the mountain before she was at the top of the mountain. And yeah, I mean that's the power of leadership, right?
yeah,
And just
that's
seeing
so
that vision and the determination of what gets to be created. And Toni, just like you were inviting those who are going to casting, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just holding
yeah.
people in their vision, being in your vision, and just declared it's already
Yeah.
done, it's already been created, and all of that. So yeah, Toni, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
I'm curious because I know, knowing your journey, and I think you've kind of touched on it already, if there's one thing that you would love to share with your younger self,
Yeah.
like what is something that you would love for your younger self to know
I I
in
saw
this journey of life?
I saw a picture that was sent to me on one of the chats the other day, and it was a little butterfly, and it had a string wrapped around it, and it was trying to pull a rock,
Mm.
and it was obviously struggling to pull
Mm-hmm.
that big rock. And the saying said, "Learn how to let shit go."
Yes.
I,
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
just fly away, cut the string, let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry about the four-letter word, but
Yeah.
that was like, oh my God, it was like right slap in my face. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I will. You still need to
Yeah.
be reminded. And you know what, guys? I think one of the most fun things that I've learned the past couple of years, working with all of these wonderful entrepreneurial groups and Speakers Playhouse and Event Raptor and all the David Rickland's plays, the JVC and the
Yeah.
JVIC and the JV Summit and the JVology, and all these great folks that are leaders in their community, is that the number one thing we all have in common is that I've noticed is that every single person you talk to in this entire speakers, authors, healers, coaches community
Yeah.
is, I want to serve. I haven't
Mm.
heard one of them say, I'm just doing this for the money.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody wants to help someone. They want to be a mentor. They want to help others. They want to serve others. They want to see how they can help. It's like
Yeah.
everybody has their hands out
Yeah.
saying, just ask, and we're there for you. And that's what I love about this entire community.
Mm.
And it's international. It's not, not just Canadian, not just American. It is international.
I
All
love
of the
that.
speakers, authors, healers, coaches that I've seen out there are just really
Wow.
brilliant people that want to give. And I
Yeah.
love it. What a
Thank
great world
you.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
It spreads, right? That connection
Mm.
Yeah,
spreads, that energy, vibration, all of it on the quantum level.
yeah.
Um, that's so powerful. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Thank you for being here. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
Toni, thank
We're
you.
My
So
pleasure.
excited. And, I just want to share with you guys before we jump off. If you want to jump into this VIP speakers retreat, we will have the link in the show notes. We'll be putting this episode up very soon. And we're excited to see you there because Toni can really bring this forward in your life and it can influence and impact not only your speaking, but every aspect of your life. So thank you for sharing that, Toni. And
My pleasure. Thank you both. It was great
yeah,
to
You're
meet you,
welcome.
Alice. Yeah.
You too. And
so
thank you so much, listener, too, for joining us today and tuning into another episode. Invitation is even to go back. I mean, Toni's dropped so many gold nuggets on this
yeah,
episode. So check out the retreat, take
yeah,
another listen, and share this episode with all the leaders in your life that want to really own that confidence when they walk in, right?
yeah.
Speak from their heart, sharing their story and learning. I know I'm going to call it the speaker dance now, right? the
Yeah,
five,
that's right.
the 5 steps that Toni introduced
That's a
us
good
to today.
title, Alice. Yeah. Okay. We'll take that. The
Speaker dance.
speaker debt.
That's it. That's it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll see you next week. Ciao for
Bye.
now.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.